well, that's a person. If it's sometimes though, not always if it's wearing clothes, because there are weird reports here and there of Bigfoot wearing clothes, even up until modern times. So that doesn't necessarily eliminate it in my book. So I just, I have to use good judgment. If it's weird enough and sounds, hairy enough, and it's still wearing a shirt or something, I'll throw that in there anyway. But most of them, I think, are referring to big, hairy, ape-like things that walk on two legs.
That would be the part I don't know. So it sounds like you devote a lot of time into this, and again, when you do this research, do you find cases like portals and things in the areas of where the sightings and stuff were?
Weird lights. I'll get notes of orbs and weird lights, and again, this is the 1800s. They didn't, UFOs weren't a thing to them. So you'll get ideas like reports where they'll have found, say, meteors. They'll say there was people see a lot of meteors there, and then this wildnet also. So which to me, it's, maybe they were seeing meteors, or maybe they were seeing something more like a UFO, and they're just calling it a meteor. But they, I've found stories where they note both in the same story.
Oh, wow. There's a person up here near where I am at that claims that they have seen Bigfoot on a regular basis. They're not really scared of him. And also sighting of little people in the same area. And that kind of intrigues me too.
Yeah. And we get that we call an albatross. But it's just our bird.
Oh boy. Your audio's dropping out there.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called the albatwitch here. It's a little little hairy person, and that's a Pennsylvania German term. Alb is German for elf, and there's a German verb entflichten, which means to escape quickly, and that it became albatwitch. But we have the little people here as well.
How tall in your area? This area, what they claim is around 6 inches, or maybe even shorter.
No, these are generally from 2 to 3 feet up to 4 feet or so, usually.
Yeah, Mary Joyce, who runs a UFO Bigfoot reporting center out of North Cashiers, North Carolina, was telling me that recently she got a picture and a report of like a little person out in the woods, and it was about like 3 feet tall, and got a back view of it anyway. And that was kind of really eerie too, because in that same area there's a lot of reporting of Bigfoot.
Yeah, and there are legends, some First Nations legends that say the natural form of these things is a ball of light, and they can take 3 other forms. One is a little person, a little hairy thing. Yeah, another's a big hairy thing, like a Bigfoot. And the other, and I'm not sure what form this means, like what this is supposed to look like, but they said was a witch. That was the other form these things could take.
That makes me just wonder what it actually could be, because, again, the only proof they've had was like footprints, a little bit of hair, some scat. But you would think after all these Bigfoot hunters going out, and they find what they claim, or like where they build their little lean-tos, or where they put their, the tree, whatever, to build a shelter and stuff like that. But you would think there would be more proof than that after all these years and all amount of people that have gone out looking for Bigfoot. That's the part I can't understand.
Right, and supposedly a group called the Olympic Project has found a nesting area, a large nesting area, where there are several nests. I think that's in Washington State. My question for that would be, did they look for lice? Because one of the main things that they found in gorilla nests is their lice. And human lice is very different from gorilla lice. Lice evolves sort of to the creature it specializes in. So if these are natural creatures, there should be a specialized form of lice for them. And I don't know if they've looked for that and not found it, or, if they haven't thought to find it. But that would be my go-to thing to look for in these nests would be lice, and then compare it to human lice. They should be different, and they should be different from gorilla lice as well.
Yeah, now you're dropping out again. Are you on a cell phone by any chance, or on something else?
I'm on the cell.
Okay. Yeah. Occasionally there, you kind of like been fading off there. I don't know. Again, from your book from the Pennsylvania area, going into like on the West Coast, what have you been noticing different between the two?
The reports are very similar from the 1800s. Interestingly enough, now these are old articles, and you can't blame. There's some racism in these articles, and it's just it's the time they were written. They weren't written today, and it just comes up. So mainly the main difference is it seems like on the East Coast, Black people are often blamed, and on the West Coast, Native Americans are often blamed. That's the main difference. That's the sort of where they're placing the blame on what these wild men were. Otherwise, the reports sound very, very similar. Very, very consistent behavior from, like I said, the culture of revenge. If people take shots at them, they will attack and follow them home, to the descriptions of the creatures and so forth.
Yeah, or maybe they never make it back home, and those are one of the missing people out in the forest, which, again, there's been a lot of them. It kind of makes me wonder, why are forest, in the United States, the Forest Department, they seem like when somebody goes missing, they don't keep very good records. And it seems like in a lot of cases, after 1 or 2 days, they end the search. And I'm just wondering if there's more to it, because, the amount of people have vanished in the national forest is huge. It's a scary amount. So I don't know if they're running into portals, going in and stepping into it, and zap, they're gone, or they're running into Bigfoot, or if they're running into, mountain lions or cougars, or falling off a cliff.
Yeah. There's a lot of, of course, David Paulides has written multiple books on it. I think, I think a lot of them, he casts a pretty wide net with those things. And this is just my opinion. I think a lot of those can be chalked up to exposure and so forth. People tend to strip their clothes off at the end, once they get cold and exposure sits in. But there is a lot of cases that he's brought up, and some other authors as well, Steph Young, that are truly, truly bizarre and unexplained. Oh, yeah.
Some of the cases, one I found so intriguing was like about a 5-year-old, and the father was putting up the tent. The mother was right in the area. He was like 20 feet away or so from the father. Father was keeping an eye on, his kid, and then turned around for 1 second, turned around, and he was gone. And they did a major search, and that little kid would have, when they found him on a mountainside or whatever it was, 15 miles away, he would have had to cross rivers that even a human couldn't cross to get there. And that's the type of things you wonder, there's something out there doing it. I don't know if it's a crazy person, a madman, or a Bigfoot, or something else. But that's a case right there. How do you explain that? Or the woman jogger, right, who's jogging with a couple friends that gone up and down this one path, out in the forest, never had a problem, and she decided to run ahead of them, and then she vanished.
Yeah, and I found a couple of those cases associated with what they call these wild men. I have one from 1888 of Florence Hughes in Pennsylvania. I said, if you want, I can read the article quickly.
Oh, go ahead for it.
Yeah. So this is from the Bradford era, Bradford, Pennsylvania, July 21st, 1888. Friday forenoon, Florence Hughes, the 2-year-old daughter of John Hughes, an employee of the Bradford Oil Company, who lives on the Rutherford farm, was playing in that vicinity with 2 other children. The little one's playmates left her alone while they were seeking flowers in a clump of underbrush nearby, and when they returned, she was gone. Mr. and Mrs. Hughes were immediately notified and instituted a rigorous search, but could find no trace of the missing one. All day long, the fruitless search was kept up. In the evening, a crowd started out from the city, swelling the number in the searching party to over 100. Every nook and spot in the woods and fields within a radius of 1 mile was examined closely, but without success. The lost babe could not be found. The parents are nearly distracted and have the keen sympathy of many friends in their trouble. It is believed the child has been kidnapped and stolen away. The era contained an account of a supposed wild being a few days ago who is seen in the area of late and is now feared the loathsome wretch has spirited the child away to his lair in the hills. Major Adsit of the Bradford Oil Company ordered men employed under his direction to prosecute the search until a clue was found somewhere. These, together with a large band of volunteer searchers, spent the night diligently seeking the missing child. At a late hour, nothing had been seen or heard from the missing one. And then, on July 20th, 1888, so this is the day before, so it's the next day, or the evening after she went missing, rather. They said there were at least 200 men and boys with torches and lanterns scouring the woods all evening. So far, the search has been fruitless. It is thought she may have been carried away by the wild man who was seen by several in this locality recently. And then they abandoned the search the following day. They said a heavy fog hung over the woods and the search had to be abandoned. So that's another thing that tends to pop up with these weird missing people cases. They said the weather will change and it'll make it impossible to search for them. The happy news about this is my wife is an awesome researcher. She's not as interested in the paranormal as I am. She's more interested in historical research. And she said, "Did you look for her death certificate?" And I did not, and we found that she did not die. This girl was found a few days later. There are no really explanations. They just found her in the woods, a little space away from her home. I believe it was in an area where searchers had searched before, which is another thing that pops up. But she did live. Florence did live, and she lived a long life. She died in her 80s, I believe. So it's, not so sad an ending with her, but she was, missing without a trace, and, they tried to find her, they tried to track her, and they couldn't find her.
Well, Timothy, it's been a lot of cases where they've gone out looking for somebody. They searched the area really well. I know one case where this one woman had disappeared, where they did find the remains. It was an area that was checked really good. And there all of a sudden, there was her remains. Now, that remains ended up there after they searched, not while they were searching. And again, a case like this little girl at her age disappearing, and that many people looking within a mile radius, and all of a sudden they find her a few days later, tells me something has happened to her.
Yeah, something strange happened, and unfortunately, I can't find any follow-up stories. Where they interviewed her or asked her what happened. If she was 2, she might not even remember. But she was found in a place where they had searched before. So there's another that we did on our podcast, Strange Familiars, recently. There's a series called The Broken Circle we did, and that was from 1928, I think, the late 20s at some point. But it was a very similar case. This girl actually was found. Her body was found. She was killed. But she was found in an area they had searched before. Very similar circumstances to this Florence Hughes case, except it didn't turn out so happy yet. But her grandfather had searched this cornfield. Absolutely, definitely said he searched it, and then that's where they found her a couple of days later.
Yeah, that's what's scary. I don't know if whatever does it, the attacking and whatever, comes back and drops them back off in the same area or what. But I don't know. It just makes me all the more leery about wanting to go out. They had that TV show, and I don't even know if it's still on anymore, a cable show where they were out looking for Bigfoot and stuff. But, again, I kind of watched that a couple of times when it first came on, and I started saying to myself, they're not going to find no Bigfoot. They got a crew of all these people with lights, cameras, making all this noise, tromping around. I don't know.
Yeah, I think going out and with a bunch of people and hooting and hollering is probably the least likely way to find what you're looking for, if that's what you're looking for. I think probably the best way is to go out and just do normal things, normal human things, because that's when people tend to run into them. They're doing normal camping things or normal hunting things, and that's when they run into them. They're not out there looking for them. And like I said, hooting and hollering.
Well, look out there.